In this video, we're going to calculate several descriptive statistics with RStudio. So first we just need to set things up. We're just going to be using one additional package called psych. So we'll run that chunk, and then we will set our working directory and read in the school days data set to an object I'm calling SD for school days data. So we'll run this chunk, and then we just also asked for heads. We have those first 6 rows for the data set, just to make sure everything is working the way that we want it to. And then here we have some basic descriptive statistics. First, we're going to attach the data set. So then when we refer to a variable name, we can refer just to the variable name without having to also include the name of the data set. So we can attach, remember, if you press Control Enter, then just the line that your cursor is on will be run. So now we've attached the data set. And here we can do lots of different things. So table and then the name of a variable will give you a frequency distribution. So if we run just that and then scroll down to our output, here's the name of our variable, and then the top row is the values, and then the second row is the frequency for each value. So we had 9 people who were never absent, 4 people who were absent once, all the way down to 1 person who was absent 81 times. And then mean just returns the mean, 16.14. Median will return the median, which is 11. SD, this is how you ask for the standard deviation, 15.91. And then VAR is how you ask for variance. So the variance, 252.98. The range will return the minimum and the maximum score, so you just have to do that subtraction to report the actual range. Quantile gives you all of the quantiles, so 0% doesn't really make a whole lot of sense for that one, but we have the 25th percentile, which is 5, 50th percentile is the same as the median, the 75th percentile, and then the 100th is our maximum score. IQR is how you get the interquartile range. It gives you the actual range, not the minimum and maximum value, so the actual range is 17. And if you went back to your quantiles, you would see that the 75th percentile minus the 25th percentile, or 22 minus 5, is that interquartile range. And then we can ask for a summary of the data, and this will give us lots of information for each variable in the data set all at once. We looked at this before, just looking at some very basic things that we can do in R. So we have the subject ID and the descriptive statistics for that, along with all of the other variables. If we wanted just a single variable, then we could add here, if we only wanted this for gender, we could add the $sign, and then it gives you the list of variables to choose from, so you can click one or you can type it in. So if we wanted just the summary for gender, we could do that and get just those 2 points. And then describe, this is a command from the psych package that gives us lots of different information. And again, we are asking R to do this for all of the variables in the data set. So here we have just the number of the variable, the sample size, mean, standard deviation, median, the trimmed mean. MAD stands for the median absolute deviation. We have the minimum and the maximum values. It's always useful to look at these and make sure it's in the appropriate range that you want it to be. It gives you the range of the values, something about the shape of the distribution in terms of skew and kurtosis, and then finally the standard error. And notice that these 4 middle variables have an asterisk after them because these are factors, and there still are values associated with the factor categories or the factor levels, so we get numbers for those, but this is sort of R telling you, this is kind of weird, don't really look at this even though we're giving you the output. And to calculate mode, it's not nearly as straightforward as you would think it would be. If you just type in the word mode and the name of the variable, you're not going to get what you want. You're going to get the type of variable rather than the modal value. So you actually have to do this 2-step process where you create a temporary object that's a table of the absent variable that we have converted to a vector. So if we run that, it doesn't look like it does anything, but then we can ask for the name of that from that temp object, where temp is equal to the maximum value. And then that will return our mode, which is 5. We can also describe the data by a grouping variable. This is another command from the psych package, so we're going to use describe by. Notice that there's a capital B in here, which sometimes can be a little tricky. Absent is the variable we want the information on. Gender is the grouping variable, so we're going to get separate descriptions of this variable of absent for females and males. Mat equals true. This just puts it in a way that it's easier to see. So mat is short for matrix. So if you look down here, we have our groups, female and male, sample sizes, mean, standard deviations, all of that information that we got when we just used the command describe by itself. We can also describe by 2 grouping variables. And so it starts out the same, describe by the name of the variable that we're most interested in. And then here we have to tell it we're doing a list for the 2 grouping variables that we want to use. And so now we have females who are average learners, males who are average learners, females who are slow learners, and males who are slow learners, and then all of the descriptive statistics for each of those 4 groups. And then we can go a step further and we can look at 3 different grouping variables. This time we're going to use one of the apply functions, and in particular we're going to use tapply, where T stands for table. Absent is the variable we're interested in, and then the list of our grouping variables. And what this allows you to do, you could have just the variable name as it is in the data set, but if you want it to output a different label, then you can tell it to do that here. So learner and race look exactly the same because we're having it, that's the name of the variable, and that's what we also wanted to put in the output. But now the school variable, we want it to label that as school.type. So when we run this line, now we're getting school type of F0, and then we have a 2x2 table within that, so race by learner. And we have these separately for the different types of schools. And then we have the same thing for F1, F2, and F3. We can also create a data set that includes these mean values that we have calculated. So we're going to create a new data set or object called new.means, and then into that we're going to put the information from this function that we just used, from this tapply function. And we want to only look at the mean, so if we wanted to do something else here like standard deviation or variance, we would just type that in there. And then we're not going to worry about missing data. So now it's created this table that we can't see. We can see over here in values, it created it. If we want to look at it before we output it, we can highlight just new.means, do our control enter command, and now that is what it's going to look like, the same as before. But now it's in its own object or data frame, so we can output that for to a file. So we can use this write.csv that we've done before, new means, because that's what we called it up here. New.means, again, because that's now what our file is going to be named. And then row.names equals true, because now the row names are important. We need to have those in there. That's going to be what type of learner the person is. So if we run that, and then we can go back to our folder where our script and our data are located, and we're going to find this new.means CSV file that was created. We just want to see what that looks like. So we can open it as in Excel, expand all of our columns so we can see what we're doing. So we have aboriginals from F0 who are average and slow learners, and then the means for each of those combinations. And that's it.